All right, now let's jump over to the list formattings. Okay, we're going to take a look at some exciting stuff today. So the main thing we're going to look at is what's custom row actions. There are a bunch of these, and we've got some new ones. So I'm going to briefly go over the ones we've had for a while and point you where you can get more information on each of those. And then we're going to talk about some of the new ones. Ooh, exciting! So I've got this list here that's all set up with all this. You'll notice I also have down here some code. This is just each one of these formats so we can look at them easily without waiting on them to load here. But this is part of the list formatting repo. So I'm sure David will have a link here at some point, and I'll show one at the end. And this is all part of the column samples generic row actions, where we've got a sample of every different row action. So what is a row action, right? Well, let's take a look here. Well, first, let's make this a little bigger, right? There we go. Look at that. Now we hit that guy. We opened up a Microsoft list. Here's a fun thing, at least in my tenant I'm seeing, is that I don't get that lovely purple when I first get here. I get this blue until I launch a flow panel. Hey, we're purple again. So if you're seeing that, it's fun. We're in a fun club here. We don't know what's going on there exactly, but that's partially because we're using the special color theming classes here. So, all right, but now we've got our purple all fixed, all good. So when we say default or custom row actions, what we mean in we say formatting is it's just a regular format. These can be inside buttons, spans, or divs. And when you've got a button or span or a div, you can have this custom row action here, and then you specify the action by name. In this case, default click does, like you might expect, it opens the item. Wow! Right, so it's the same as if I were to double click the item. All right, so double clicking the item is the same thing. Right, so it just allows me to control exactly how that's done. I can show it conditionally. I can add special styles to it, right? So the rest of this format is just styles. These formats will all pretty much be the same except for this custom row action piece here. Okay, so that's how that works. Then you'll start to see the rest of these pretty well align with the buttons up here when you've got an item selected, right? So when you have an item selected, you can do almost all of these original ones here. So we can hit edit, or we can hit edit props here, right? So it's just the same thing, it's just edit props. And the difference here is it opens that form, but it's basically hit the edit all button for us. Wow! That's exciting. All right, and then share, just like this does the share here. We can also do the share. Oh my gosh. Whoa, it's amazing. All right, good. We keep going further than that. We can also copy the link, all right? So if we've got a copy link, it's the same as hitting this button here. Wow, copied. So you can see again, all of these so far just specify action and then the name of it. Now you'll notice this one, VS Code is highlighting this for me, and you'll get the same kind of underline when you go to format it here on the website. And the reason for that is the schema, this thing right here, has not yet been updated with some of these new actions. So this is one of those newer ones here. But I can show you it does indeed work. So it's just copy link, there we go. And I believe the documentation is up to date on at least copy link here, which I can't switch to that, so we'll just not go to the documentation. All right, that's fine. Trust me. We'll just say wink, wink. Okay, so comment, same kind of thing, comment. The difference here is it opens that edit form, but it auto-focuses you in comments. That's really the only difference. So it's the same as the default click, except if this were collapsed, it's going to make sure it's expanded, and it will auto-focus here so you can start typing right away. Again, can be really helpful if you're trying to promote some of these features and trying to make it a little more front and center than having to know that you have to select an item and then come here and comment. Same with delete. Ah, no, I love my butter is turned. I shall not. And we saw the execute flow earlier. Let's see the delete, execute flow. We've seen this one a number of times. There are several samples on this, but let's go over it very briefly. You'll see execute flow has this additional item called actionParams. So we're going to see that a couple more times here. ActionParams, unlike actionInput, which we'll also see, ActionParams will always be escaped JSON within your JSON. JSONception! Microsoft loved JSON so much that they decided to do it twice, right in there. And that's great because it also means that you have to escape every double quote here. So that's what these are. So this is what's going on here. And what we're doing here, the only thing you actually need to execute the flow is the ID of the flow. And I'm pulling that right off of my Power Automate. Oh, it's the Teams sharing thing. Beep, beep. There we go. Let's see. I've got my little Teams things covering up the window, but I just can't see it. We'll do that. Aha! So where this is coming from, this little ID right here. All right, so if you get the ID of your flow, it's in the URL. If you go to the flow details, and then you put that in, and let's put that guy back up here. Let's make him back on top. There we go. All right, so you can see that's where that same ID here. And then I can customize things like the header, and I can customize the run flow button text so that when I click that, all right, we saw that before, that comes up and it pulls in, this is what I specified here, it's flow time, and then this will say do it once it's connected. Everything in here, though, is not coming from the format, right? So this is the title, this is the description, and this is a summary of the connections, right? So all of that information is still coming from the flow itself. So if you want to customize any of those, you come over here and you edit those just like you would expect. Wowee! All right, so let's keep going. All right, and again, these are not required, but they certainly help quite a bit, and I think it's a lot easier to understand those than run flow. But this is also the same thing as coming up here, right? We go to automate and we go down to flows. We wait for it to load as it figures out what it can do, and there's emphasize it, right? This one you'll see a lot because it's really nice to be able to change what flow runs based on the status, or doing all sorts of other things like that, or being able to show some of the actual progress of that. Again, we have a bunch of samples and videos about that. So let's keep going. All right, now we're going to take a look at this one. We took a look at this a little more detailed a few weeks ago, and I will reference that video here in just a little bit. But if you are interested in customizing the new approvals type actions, if you've turned on approvals, you'll see you'll get this request approval here. It's the same thing as hitting this, which is openApprovalDialog. When I click that, I get this nice little dialog with all my ability to set up the approvers and everything here. And that's super cool. I cannot, at this time, customize this form, right? I can't change anything here. I'm just saying whether or not I want to show it or not, right? So I'm helping prompt the user without having to have them select it, then coming up here. That's what that is. But again, we did a demo where we showed how you can customize how this looks and specify what the status is and do some other fun things there. Okay. Now, what about if I don't like people having to be able to right-click things? I want them to be able to left-click and it be like a right-click. Good news! You can do that with Open Context Menu. So you can make your own button that opens that context menu. All right, so it's the same thing for your list item. It'll just open the context menu without having to right-click. So there you go. Wow! Save your Mac users from having to hold control down. All right. Now here's another interesting one. So this is a fairly new one. This one is where we're going to start to see our first use of actionInput. Right. So the embed action allows you to take an embeddable item from an approved domain. So just like other areas, if you're trying to embed on your SharePoint pages or whatever, there is a spot for your site settings or for your tenant settings where you can add additional domains to approve there. By default, there are several kind of that come out of the box, like YouTube, for instance, what we're going to show here. And the way these works is you specify a height and the width, and you specify the special embed link, and it's just going to create a lovely thing for us here where it's going to put that video right here. And you can watch that or wherever your other embed. So if you've got, say, your own Cloudinary or something like that where you're hosting videos, you've got Stream or whatever else, and you want to be able to embed these directly, you can. And the way I got that link was I just went to YouTube. And if you come down to Share, if you hit this embed, this source right here, that is the embed link, and then I just copied the width and height so that I had the nice aspect ratio, right? And I customized those right here, so you can see it's a 1-for-1. Nice, I didn't have to do any of that escape to JSON stuff, so I do like the actionInput. I hope that they start doing that a little more. Wow-wee. Okay, so that's pretty cool. All right, so we can do some stuff with that. Let's go back. Obviously, maybe you don't want to do YouTube videos, but you can. And then you can also, of course, do these dynamically. You'll see that I've got these hard-coded, so each one of these does the same video. But for instance, if I wanted to build this with an expression, right, if I wanted to add an equals, and I just started to write it here, I could say, plus, some field value that is the field value with, say, the YouTube of, video ID, that kind of thing, right? If I want to put in start times, all right, look, it even suggested it for me. How nice. Okay, so let's undo that before I forget to do that. Okay, great. So now let's look at a slightly more complicated one, and that is the setValue. So we've seen this a number of times. There's several samples on the setValue because it's really, really powerful. It allows you to set one or more column values all at the same time. So if we take a look at setValue, you can see this also makes use of that actionInput. And the way this one works is you just put your internal column name here, and this will be the value set it to. And again, you can use expressions just like I'm doing, where I'm saying take whatever the value currently is and add 1 to it. right? So that's for the plus button. And then I've got another one down here doing the exact same thing where I'm just subtracting one from it. So that allows us to do things like plus. Hey, it updated the item, right? It went up. And even when the value is null right now, I should be able to subtract and minus it. And all of these things. So this one has a corresponding quick action. So if you haven't seen the quick actions yet, these are hidden up here in the automate in quick steps. I call them quick action, but quick steps, where you can create a new quick step. I'm just going to manage quick steps, and you can see that I've got one. This is the best dialog. There we go. Let's make that better. Okay. So I have one here where I can say for every selected item, I can set the value. So it's the same exact kind of thing where I can set the value, right? But I can specify every single one of them that I have selected. So there's benefits, pluses and minuses, right, to this approach. So the plus to this approach, right, is I know I don't have to select anything. I can affect exactly the item I want. I can say exactly how I want that to edit to be, and I can do it dynamically on the fly. Very, very powerful. But I can't affect multiple items at once, right? But in this case, I can come here, and now I can come up to automate quick steps. Well, and I get reset value here, right? So I can hit reset value, and I can update all of those items at once. I can even update multiple columns at once. So there's a real correspondence or a correlation between these, and we're going to see that even more in just a moment. So you can go really crazy with this. You can add additional items here. All right, so if I, let's make that top again, there we go. Right, so I could specify additional columns here, right? If I wanted to update, one of the other columns here, I could say title, and I would just be able to say what its value should be, like dog. Why would it be dog? I don't know. It could be, right? But again, I could make this dynamic. I could do all sorts of stuff here. Again, check out a ton of samples. If you just search for the set value, you'll see a lot of examples of that. All right, but now let's take a look at a couple of new ones that are unique to document libraries. What? That's crazy. All right, let's undo. Okay, perfect. All right, the first one we're going to look at is previewFile action. So if I head over here, this is just a standard document library. I've added a couple of more column formats here. So this is the previewFile action. And the way this works is very, very similar to the embed, except there aren't additional action inputs on this one. But what I can do is I can click it, and now I get the file preview dialog, right? So in some ways, this seems a little strange, right? Like, why would I need that? For instance, if I click on the file itself, well, it depends on how it goes. I'm not logged in, right? It opens the whole thing, right? Sometimes it shows the file preview based on your sizing. I can't switch over. Let's come back here. But it does act a little bit differently, right? So if you wanted to preview, this is the way to preview rather than open directly or doing the default click. For instance, this will open over in Excel, right? Whereas this guy will open right here, and you can work on it directly. So that's very, very helpful to have that. It's not quite the same as a thumbnail column, where we have lots of examples if you wanted to do a thumbnail. This is for when you really want to take advantage of that whole preview kind of interface. Ooh. All right. Now, copyFile. What is this? Right? So now we can do this. So copyFile, we're going to see these actionParams come back into play. And the way this is going to work is the copyFile will take whatever file I've got here, and I can hit butterflies or magic, and I'm going to copy it over here. Let's see. Nothing up my sleeve. No butterflies or magic here. All right, so let's copy that file. Copying one item, and then it should be over here. We let's see. Can I refresh this? Let's refresh this little guy. There we go. It would probably show up on its own, but there it is. Sample Word document, butterflies or magic. Okay, there it is. Beautiful. The idea is I can set up predefined copy actions. So what's really powerful about that is, right, in the past, you would have to come in here and you could say, there's a copy in here. I don't even know where it is. Oh, there's copy to, right? And then it comes up here and it's like, hey, where do you want to copy to? And that could be like, you're telling people, like, remember, don't copy it to, the old HR site, copy it to the new HR site into the different, folder. And everyone forgets that. They're always copying to the wrong spot. It's a real mess. With this, I can predefine exactly where I want it to go every time. I can even do it dynamically, right? So based on the status of, say the document in the approval or something like that, I can choose where the copy or the move happens to by specifying this destination URL. Do note that it's lowercase d and uppercase U and then lowercase u, R, and L. Exciting. It's just having fun with it, right? But here you can see I've written this as an expression, right? So the idea is even though this is escape JSON, which we love, I can also write that all as an expression. So I've got the equals. I'm just building a string here. So by using current web, I make this work wherever. I'm not hard coding it to my specific site. and I'm just saying wherever the shared documents library is, that's where I want you to copy on this site. But if I wanted to go to a specific folder, for instance, I could add that right in here, right? I could say, a special folder, or if I wanted to make that dynamic, I could do that. So you could get a lot of really cool things with that. So be sure to check that out. Now, this also has an analog in the quick actions. Let's take a look at that. So if we take a look up here, I've configured one, maybe. Let's just refresh, because I can't click none of the interfaces. Silly interface, just so silly. Oh, am I still connected to everybody? I didn't lose the connection to that. Okay, good.
Yeah, I can hear you and see you. Something's going on with just maybe your SharePoint site. SharePoint, SharePoint is a.
They're responding perfect. That's just
They're like, you're not the boss of me, Chris Kent.
All right. It's probably that I tried to do this fancy splitting nonsense. Let's just unsplit that. There we go. And we'll page and there you go. It didn't like it, but we're back. So the idea here is if I go to automate, I've got my quick steps. I manage my quick steps. You can create a copy quick step. All right, so this is the same kind of thing. All right, so I can specify where I want that to go. In this case, I've selected the documents folder. So it's all the same kind of thing. I could even choose to display this conditionally, right? So like only when certain things happen. So again, it's a very, very similar analog, but you have to be able to select that file, but you can select multiple files and hit that all at once. That can be really, really helpful. And if you're ever wondering, how does this actually get configured? Here's a friendly tip. If you install, there's an extension called SP Editor. It is awesome. Be sure to use that. And when I hit F12, I can go over to the SharePoint tab. I can go down to List Properties, and right on the side I'm on, I can come down here and pick whatever list or library I'm on. So I click this action time. When I click that, I can actually see my quick steps properties. All right, so I can see exactly how that was configured. I can see they're configuring it with target library URL and documents and all these other things. This is not a one-for-one analog. So if you're doing it in format, it's a little bit different. But if you're ever interested in how the quick steps are stored or they're configured for your library or list, they are directly added to the list properties, and you can go view those using something like this or the API, which is all this is doing. Okay, that was a little fun pro tip. Wow. All right, and then lastly, we've got moveFile, which is basically the same thing, except it doesn't leave it also here, right? So if we want to take our first egg, and we'll move that on over. So we're moving that item, so it's going to cut it out of this guy, and now it should be over in the other one, which is, somewhere on the site. Where's that one? Oh, that's in documents. Oh, well, you know what? We've got this cool document switcher. Let's just switch over. So documents, do we have my first egg? Came over 10 hours ago, so I think I just copied it over. Awesome. Oh, that was when it was modified because it just came over. Got it. All right, because it was a move, not a copy. Got it? All right, so we have all of these different actions here we could do, and we've got several that are specific to document libraries, like we just looked at here in our action time here. So you can take advantage of those. Now, the nice thing, I'm showing each one of these as an individual column format. These can be used inside a larger view format. These can be used, combined with all the actions can be combined in a little toolbar, right? So sometimes it's really nice to be able to set up like a gallery view, and then you set up just a little toolbar of these buttons because it's just a little more intuitive than selecting an item and then coming back up here and find it. It's sometimes hidden within these where you're showing them exactly the way you want nicely. Now, you can customize how these go through the command bar properties, but those are per view, whereas if you're doing this at the column level, right, that's going to cross across all of the views. Okay. So real quick, let's wrap this up by jumping over to some slides. There's some slides. There we go. So here is the big list of all of the actions that are available. You can see that 3 of them are only for document libraries, but you can use all the other ones on document libraries as well. So it can be really helpful there. Most of these work within the list and library web part on the page, so they'll continue to work there. Last time I checked, execute flow was not working there exactly right, but it has in the past, so hopefully it's back to working. But the idea is that you can create little applications and really guide users. So if you've got a process for how people are supposed to work with your list items or your documents, it's cool that there's a ton of options, but that can be really overwhelming, especially if it's the same across every list. So sometimes it can be really helpful to hide a bunch of those buttons at the top using command bar prompts, and then only showing the buttons when they make sense as they're part of their workflow, right? So maybe we're not using commenting, so we don't use this one here. We even hide it from the top, right? It's available should they want to, but we're trying to really emphasize, hey, when you're done, the status a certain way, we're going to show a big red copy button or move button, and we're even going to start the approval dialog and that kind of thing. And we're going to hook all that up with our flows and so on. So really, really powerful stuff. Really nice way to customize things. Okay, finally, this is a slide from the previous one. Just wanted to call this out. If you're doing anything with the open approval dialog, there are additional columns that get added when you sign up for the approvals on your list or library, and you can use all of these in your formats as well. And again, we've got a pretty cool sample we did a few weeks ago on that if you're interested in customizing that further. And then finally, be sure to check out our list formatting repo where we've got about 300 plus samples across all of the forms and the columns and the views, and wow. All of these are individual samples available in the generic row actions. You can find a little more details about the new modern approval stuff if you're not familiar with that, because that is new right here. And then, of course, some of the extensions that you may have seen in the background that help with formatting as well are here. And this does not help with formatting, but it does add little horses, and that's exciting. And that's it for me, David. Wow!